Welcome to the Create Today podcast. This show is all about how you can create the life that you want one day at a time. I'm your host, Karen Stanley, and today my guest is the beautiful, amazing Priscilla Smith, who's hard to introduce. She is so many things, and we're going to get all into that, but she's the founder of Pie Show, which is Albuquerque's best salon 6 years in a row. And the co-author of a brand new book that just got out called Powerful Female Immigrants. They tell her story in chapter 3. I just ordered it. I can't wait to read it. And she just started a nonprofit. We're going to hear all about that. Priscilla, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I want to start at the very beginning. Priscilla, you said Pie Show is passion in Portuguese.
Yes.
So tell us about, you're from Brazil.
I am. I'm from Brazil. I'm the youngest of 7. And when I was 3 years old, my father decided that he wanted to bring the family to the US. And so he left my mom back in Brazil with 7 kids for 3 years while he was here trying to forge, the whole journey and how he was going to get us to the States. Wow. And so, so very early on in my life, I knew what struggle was, at 3 years old, 4 years old, between 3 and 6, there's certain things I do remember about the struggles and watching my mom trying to take care of 3 kids and also dealing with, the immediate family and people wondering like why my dad would do such a thing and leave his wife with 7 kids. And so, I grew up basically watching struggle, but then also watching how my parents gave it all they had. And for them, failure was not an option. And so we finally made it to the States, and that wasn't any easier because now it's a brand new country. You don't know the language. Your parents don't know the language. And so you're navigating through these hardships with no resources. And
where did you come to first?
So first we came to South Florida. And later in life, actually, when I was writing my own book that was published in March, Unraveling Passion, during the time that I was writing that book is when I heard for the first time that the destination was Albuquerque, New Mexico the whole time. And I never knew that. I thought we moved to Florida, and then my dad just decided we would go to Albuquerque, but that wasn't the case. Albuquerque was the destination all along. And
why was that?
Well, so my dad's a pastor, and he actually had this vision that he was in like a foreign land, and somebody in this dream/vision told him that he was in Albuquerque. And so ever since then, he just felt like he needed to go to this town called Albuquerque. And so he bought this massive map and put it up on the wall and started in Brazil and just started looking for this town called Albuquerque. I mean, most people don't even know how to spell Albuquerque. And so he just started looking for it. And when he found it, he made the decision that that's where he was going to go. And apparently this happened 3 years before I was born. And so, and so we went to Florida first, because normally, people coming from Brazil, going to Florida first is pretty normal because it's closer. And so, so we lived there. But when we got to Albuquerque, that's where my struggle started, because I was 10 going on 11, started middle school in a town called Barelas, and it was teeming with drugs and violence and gangs. And I never knew what that was. Like that was not a lifestyle that I was used to or had even seen. And so that was my introduction to the town. It's a small town out in the desert. And that's where my struggles started, right? So within a couple months of being there, I witnessed my first drive-by shooting. And then at that point, I just became really angry with my parents. And so I just opened up my arms and kind of free fell into this into this chaos and accepted that's what my life was going to be like.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Were
from
there a
11
lot
to
of
17,
drugs?
I struggled a lot. Like that town almost broke me several times.
Mm.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of drugs, drug use? Were you introduced to
Oh,
drugs,
absolutely.
all of it?
Absolutely. I mean, I was addicted to anything that I can put my hands on.
Really?
And then as a pastor's kid, you know, you learn how to hide that.
Mhm.
So I became a very good at hiding my true self. Like nobody knew what I was really into. They had an idea, but you create this massive wall and you just become a professional hider. And so for 30 years, I hid my story until I decided to write a book and finally tell my story, my full story. And so that's how I kind of told it to the world, which was really crazy because I never thought I would share my full story. But in the industry that I'm in now, I feel like I have to tell the background in order for people to understand what I'm trying to do and where I'm headed.
I agree. If there's one thing I've learned in the last, few years, it's that if you don't share your story, then people that have experienced the same things feel like they're the only ones.
Yeah.
And everybody's in perma hiding mode, which is very tempting because we're ashamed of the things that we've done in our past or the things that we've lived through. Then we can't help anybody else heal. So I want to just say, I'm so grateful for your bravery. It's very hard to talk about the past where we struggled and we made bad decisions and we're, wrapped up in all the wrong crowds, all of that. But how important it is and how important it is to be brave and share it. Again, just so excited for you to share it with us, and thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for me, I think what really helped me, when you're writing about it, it helps you to be able to talk about it because you have to go back and you're editing all your chapters. So as you're reading it, like you hear yourself speaking it. And so it makes it a whole lot easier. But I mean, it was 30 years of just trying to find myself. And, by the time I was 17, drug abuse, we'd survived homelessness and, sexual assault, and I mean, you name it. So it definitely was not easy. And even thinking back now, like, I don't know. I mean, I think despite the challenges, I do believe that the things we go through in life, like it's specific to the niche that you're supposed to be in. And you just have to be okay with accepting it. Like you survived it. If you're still breathing, that means you survived what you thought was going to kill you. And if you survived it, dude, like just use that, leverage it and show somebody else who might be feeling like they can't survive it.
I love that. It's so true. So you have experienced sexual assault, you're addicted to drugs, how long was your family homeless? Where did you go?
For about 3 years. So we lived in a few of my dad's churches and like commercial buildings. The hardest one though was when my dad built this shed out in the middle of nowhere in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, just outside of Albuquerque, and we lived in that for over a year. So it was just us kids, and it was literally a shed. It was probably maybe 20 by 30 in size. My dad had a dream of building us a house one day, and so he started building this place, but then the money ran out. Like he didn't have anywhere else for us to go, and so we all moved our furniture, and no bathroom, no heat, no nothing. It was literally just 4 walls it was a wooden shed.
How did you shower? Did you take baths? How did you?
So what we basically, yeah. So my parents, they would fill up Home Depot buckets of water. And so in the morning to get ready for school, I would just use a small mug, kind of like what you were just using. and get some freezing cold water, because it was in the winter time in Albuquerque. It snows, it gets pretty cold. I mean, it can get down below zero sometimes. And so, you use a small mug of water, and you grab a little bit, and you just kind of, put it on your eyes, and you dip your toothbrush in it to wet it, and you brush your teeth. Bathing was very challenging. That was, I have 3 brothers, and, my mom would hold up this towel to like cover my naked body in the corner of the room while I'm just pouring cold water on myself, washing myself. That was by far the most humiliating yet humbling experience any 13-year-old can live through.
Is this from the ages of 13 to 16? That's where you're living in the shed?
So, well, in the shed, we lived in the shed for about a year and a half. So the shed was like between 12 and 13.
You're going through middle school and puberty at the same time.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Have you read the book, The Glass Castle?
I have not.
You got to read it.
Okay.
It's a family even crazier than yours.
Really?
It's really amazing. Yeah, they made a movie about it, but the movie's never as good as the book. Book's amazing. But I think it also really helps. I just I laughed because I don't have, my story isn't anything like yours. We just had a lot of chaos. We had 11 kids and chaos all the time. And it just made me smile. I think you'll love it's sweet and it's sad and it's beautiful and it's true. How in the world did you get out of that situation? What happened after did you finish high school?
No, I did not. I attempted to, essentially escape back to South Florida any chance I got. So my freshman year, because I still had a sister that lived in South Florida. And so in 8th grade, I was forcefully ranked into a gang. And I knew that if I stayed in Albuquerque after that I probably would not be alive to talk about it today. Mm-hmm. And so I begged my mom to send me to South Florida, and she did. So my freshman year, I stayed in South Florida for about 6 to 8 months. And when I came back, I lost some credit hours for high school. And then I came back, and then I was angry again, and then got involved with some other stuff, and then went back to Florida my junior year. So I just didn't have enough credits to graduate. Mm-hmm. And what really saved me was, I met what would one day become my husband, and I became pregnant pretty quick. And so it's safe to say that my pregnancy basically saved my life, because now I was having to provide for a kid. And through that, I happened to get into the multifamily real estate, because we were looking for an apartment. And so the leasing agent basically told me that they would offer me a 20% discount if I applied to work there, and I didn't have any money. So I thought, wow, 20% off my rent, sign me up.
Yeah.
And I was in that industry for 13 years. I went from that to commercial real estate, and I learned that I was really good at it. And I found my work ethic. I never knew I had work ethic up until the point that I, had to have a child to take care of. And I did that for 13 years. I was extremely good at it.
That's incredible. Is your child a son or a daughter?
A son.
Oh, how old is he now?
He's 22. Wow. Yeah, he's 22, and he's actually spearheading this journey with me now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that next. I love it.
Yeah.
And after you said you were in there in commercial real estate for 13 years, and then what happened that made you want to shift gears?
I learned what some powerful women can do to others that are not considered powerful women. I had that experience. I was really good at what I did, and I just it almost seemed as if, I got along with the property owners, and I mean, gosh, I mean, I've gotten like so many different awards, and I was nominated like assistant manager of the year, and I was just really good at it, and I enjoyed it, and I treated the properties like they were my own. And but there, through a series of different events there, I learned how catty women can be when they have so much power. And I stayed in it as long as I could. And it just got to the point where I just felt like I could be doing so much better. I'm the type of person where whatever negative environment I'm in, like I'm a natural problem solver. So I thought, okay, well, I don't like what I'm seeing, so I'm going to choose to not be that person and be someone else. And so here I was managing someone else's multi-million-dollar company. And so I thought, well, one day I want to be able to do my own. And it just so happens after I left the industry, I started getting a little more serious with nails, right? Went out, bought a little gel kit and started doing my own nails. And then my nieces started asking me to do theirs. And then I had some friends from my son's basketball team that were asking me to do their nails. And one of my good friends told me that I should consider doing nails. And that same day, my husband comes home and tells me that I should consider getting licensed. And so I thought, wow, well, okay, so I'll do it. Took a 90% pay cut to do it. It was a massive risk. But in hindsight now, this is what my purpose is. I've known since I was 14 that my purpose was to help young women. But at 14 years old, I didn't have anything to offer. But never in a million years did I think it would be in the nail industry. And what's fascinating is when I was registering my my second child, my daughter Brielle, I was registering her in high school, and I'm standing in line, and there was this woman sitting behind the table, and she looks at me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like, hey, how are you doing?" And I was like, "Hi, how?" I had no idea who she was. I was like, "Hi, I'm good. How are you?" And she's like, "Do you still like doing nails?" And I thought, well, who are you for one? And what do you mean? Like, she had no idea that at that point, I was already the CEO of the best nail salon in Albuquerque. And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm so sorry. Like, you must not remember me." She's like, "My name is Donna." She's like, I was the secretary at the high school that you went to, and you would come to my office all the time, and we would just sit and talk nails." And see, and at that time, I was high all the time. Like, I don't remember that. And so at 17, I didn't even know I had ambition to do anything. And so that really stuck with me. And so for 17-year-olds who at 17, I was at my worst. Like, that's when I was contemplating, like, is it worth being on this planet? And so I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, like, wow, so now here I am, all these, 2 decades later, and I've hired like dozens of young women already on how to do nails. And I'm the CEO of this, like, massive nail salon. I think at the time I had 19 nail techs working for me. And I really, that's conversation just really changed my trajectory. And I'm thinking, what would have happened if somebody would have asked me at 17, "Hey, have you ever considered the beauty industry?" My life would have been in a completely different place. And so I started, studying the industry a little more. And right around that time, I started looking into, maybe opening up a school. And all of this was, right pre-COVID. Started looking into some stuff, and then I learned that you can start beauty school as early as 16, and yet nobody's talking about it. And in Albuquerque at the time, and even now, half of the homeless population are teenagers. Yeah. And that just didn't sit well with me, And then when COVID happened, you start learning about these women that are stuck in abusive relationships, and then you have the financial hardship on top of that. And my world just came tumbling down when I realized why I was in this business, and it is so funny because I would always tell my team, like, we're going to change the culture of the nail business and in the nail industry. And they would look at me like I was crazy. I didn't know why I was saying it. I just knew that we would. And so here I am now launching the first nonprofit salon to ever exist. It's pretty cool.
So cool. Yeah, I remember New Mexico was one of the harshest, longest lockdowns too.
Yeah.
Right? How long were you actually not even allowed to be open?
Oh gosh. So we were closed, like zero, nobody can go in for about 2.5 months. But after that, for the beauty industry or for service industries, we had to operate at 20% for over a year. And so that was hard. That was the hardest because I couldn't hire anybody. So in hindsight, looking back now, it's like, I don't even know how we made it, but being able to operate at only 20% capacity for over a year, a lot of businesses shut down because of that.
Yep. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't reopen. It's hard to stay in business when you can do 100% capacity.
Yeah.
Almost impossible to do it if you can only have
20%. I mean, it was really only through the grace of God that my company is still, here. I mean, there were so many salon owners that made it through, and it's so funny because I would see them at different events and stuff, and they're like, oh, like we're all looking at each other like, oh yes, you made it. It's just so sad to think that, those that weren't in the room didn't make it. And it was a lot of them. Yeah.
It's disgusting. How did you meet your husband? I wanted to just go back to that because you said 17 was the lowest of the low. You went back to South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
One last time. Is that where you met your husband?
No. So the first time I saw my husband was my freshman year in Albuquerque.
But known him.
Yeah. I was a freshman. He was a senior, and he was, to me, the cutest kid in school. So, and so that's the first time that I met him, and didn't really meet him. That's the first time I saw him, right? Because I never had the guts to actually speak to him. And so, so I had a big crush on him, but then he graduated and he, went to Santa Barbara and he's doing the college thing. And then, after a series of events, he ended up coming back to Albuquerque. And, so I had just turned 18 in September, and then, got a job at, MCI. I don't know what your demographic is, but that's back in the day when we used to sell long distance coverage.
Yeah, we had to pay for long distance.
We had to pay for long distance. Yeah. And that was me. I was a person on the phone convincing you that you needed to buy, 69 cents a minute for long distance. And so I walked into our training day one of working at MCI, and he happened to be there. And so that was it. Yeah. So after a few weeks of working together, he slipped me a note that said, hey, if you're not dating anybody, can I take you out to dinner? And my response was, it's about effing time. That was all I wrote. We've been married 23 years now.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that part because it looks so great. Congratulations. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
So let's go back to right now. You wrote a book, you released your book, then you co-authored the book that's called Powerful Female Immigrants. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like? Were they interviewing you, or did you write your own chapter?
I wrote my own chapter. Awesome. Yeah. That was incredible to just be approached by this group and the publisher, and to be a part of that. So we did the book launch in Dallas just last weekend, actually. And just to hear all the stories and being there with all of these women, it's reassuring that, you know, that your misery can be your ministry. Like, it can work out for the better. And like I said, you know, just it takes a lot of courage still, don't get me wrong. Yes, you know, immigrants have lived through hell, have gone to hell and back. But and you still need courage to keep jumping. And I think, and I say keep jumping because, you know, for those that are business owners, like we're professional, we're professional pivoters. I don't even know if that's a word, but we pivot. Like, you hit a wall and you pivot this way, and then you hit this wall and you pivot that way. But I think for immigrants, like we've lived through things that really can be designed to, like, make sure that you're not ever going to be anything, you know. And we were so close to just being left out on the street. But I don't know, it's just, I think I would say for immigrants, I think because of what we saw our parents go through and how much determination they had to be able to give their kids a different life, I think that does something to your psyche. Like, it just, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, there's no option for failure. There just is no option, because when you're living in those conditions at a very young age, failure equates to death. Right. And there's no option for that. I mean, I'm the youngest of 7 kids. Like, death was not an option. Like, my parents had to figure out how to provide for us.
Right.
They had to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. How are they doing now?
They're doing good. They're back in South Florida. They're living in South Florida. My father, you know, he's not doing so great. My mother is healthy. My mother is his caregiver. About 9 years ago, he had a stroke. And so he's definitely not the same person he used to be, but his mind is there, you know. He can't really use the right side of his body that much. And so his most, you know, favorite thing to do was to write. And so he can't write now. For a couple years after the stroke, he taught himself how to write with his left hand, but I think that just became too much for him. And so, but he still shows up to work every day. The trade in my family is auto body repair. And so my brothers own a shop in South Florida. And so my dad still shows up to work every day. He doesn't do much, but he's still there.
Gives them a purpose.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You're really, really passionate about helping at-risk youth, women, these girls that are specifically teenager through, what'd you say, 24-ish?
Yeah, 24, 26, yeah.
You said when kids run away, either from their parents or from the foster system or whatever, they are picked up by traffickers within 48 hours. You said
Yes.
All roads end in trafficking. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I believe
all roads right now, all at-risk roads for females lead to trafficking.
So glad we're talking about this, because tell us more.
Well, so it's that stat that I shared, that stat has been proven to be fact over and over again by different organizations. And now with social media and the internet and everything, you know, picking up for trafficking is just so common. And so, and I think the part that's fascinating is a lot of these traffickers, they know how they know that you are a runaway. Like, they could tell. I was watching this documentary of this man that is currently in prison, and he was a big time human trafficker, sex trafficker. And they asked him, how do you know who your victims are going to be? And he said he could tell by the way you walk that you are a prime target for him. And so it goes down to the level of confidence that these young women have in themselves. And so he outlined like the different walks, right? If he could tell that you're kind of down and out by the way you walk, he can tell if you're confident by the way you walk. Like, are you an easy target? He could tell if you have daddy issues by the way you walk. Like, these guys know exactly what they're doing. They've mastered the craft of abusing women. And to me, it's disgusting. And so within the beauty industry, what I've seen, long before I realized that the system that I created in my company would one day be a nonprofit salon, I started seeing the shift in the confidence levels of my team. Right now, when I hire people, of course, I wasn't asking them, hey, do you have a history of trauma? Like, that's not a question you ask when you're interviewing somebody, right?
Oh.
But I started learning their stories, and many of them opened up to me and told me how they grew up. And gosh, like, most of them had a history of trauma. And so what I started witnessing was, for me, I was just irritated at the fact when I graduated that nobody wanted to share their knowledge with me. And so I opened up my salon with the intent of only hiring graduating beauty school students. And that's what I did. Like, they had a lick of experience in the nail industry. Many of them, in order to go to a top school, they have to do the full Cosmo program, which can take over a year to do. And they only got 2 weeks of training in nails. They have no experience. And I would always tell my team, like, well, I'm not looking for experience. I hire people for things that I can't train. Right. And so they were just dumbfounded that I was willing to take them in when they didn't even know how to hold a nail file. And it's a high-end salon. Like, it's a high-end salon. Everything is white. They're shocked that, we're charging the prices that we're charging, and that they deserve to even be able to charge those types of rates. And I did all that on purpose. Like, you need to know that you have self-worth. And that's basically how I ran my company. And so I started seeing how when they would come in, they were quiet, wouldn't really speak to anybody. And little by little, when they start learning the trade and they start, building relationships with their clients, and it was always that one set of nails that they did that they can actually be proud of themselves for, they're running around the salon holding their phones because they took a picture of it, and just looking for me, and like, they wanted to show me what they did. And as they're like talking, they're describing this set that they did, I'm just locked in their eyes. Like, I'm not looking anywhere else. I became obsessed with what I was seeing that would happen in their eyes. And I kid you not, that happened with 100% of everybody that I've hired. And so that was the first obsession for me. It was like just seeing what that was doing to them. And then the other one was when they would have their first client that would rebook with them. And because we're a high-end salon, like, we get busy pretty fast. And so we have clients, a lot of business women, and they have to get on a schedule, right? And so we would have clients that would book a year in advance, and they were shocked that somebody actually wanted to come and sit in their chair every 3 weeks for a whole year. And so that was the other thing that I was just clocked in their eyes, just like, I could just see like the self-worth just like building. And I just became obsessed with that, totally obsessed with that. And now I just want to, instead of waiting for these women to come to us, like, we need to go take them out, like, something needs to be done. And so essentially the last 2 years I've been re-strategizing my company, and and essentially putting everything I have financially, mentally, physically, you name it. I mean, it's all in, and so.
So beautiful. I have tears in my eyes and goosebumps all over my body, because you gradually realize that what you're doing is you're helping them heal. And like, you're helping them grow confidence they didn't even know they had.
They don't. They have no clue.
So beautiful.
They have no clue how special they are. And it's just, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it takes a lot to make me speechless. And even now talking about it, like, a lot of people don't recognize it, and they don't realize the sacrifice that one has to do to go seek those women out.
Right.
And I'm essentially, putting everything I have into this one thing. It's like one wrong move, it all goes down.
Nah, how to don't
say that. And so it's like
1,000 times.
But again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. There is no option for failure. There isn't, because the reality now is it's almost like I'm back to when I was 11 years old, right? Failure equals death. So if I failed, they die.
They die. So tell us all about it.
That's not an option.
So what stage are you in right now with this nonprofit?
So my time right now is being split between my existing company. I need to make sure that my existing team is taken care of, and that my company is essentially operating and running itself. And so what I did was, instead of having this massive, I had to ask myself a difficult question, because my nail salon, it's a massive salon. Pre-COVID, like I was telling you earlier, I had 19 nail techs all working under one building, or under one roof. So you can imagine like how overwhelming that can be. And so I had to sit and ask myself, when I realized the direction that I was headed and what I wanted to do to give back and help, I asked myself, if I had a young woman that went through Passion Story, which is my nonprofit, went to beauty school, graduated, if they were to decide to do nails and they stepped foot in your salon, would they thrive in this environment? And the answer was no. It was really sad it was sad, because I had worked so hard in this big salon, and it's like, everything is great. And, it's very heartfelt to see all this great stuff happening. But I needed to, essentially just take it back one notch, not, take a step back. But basically just take a step back in the form of the size of the space. And so what I did is I split my team in half. I launched 2 new locations. So now the most you're going to have in each salon is 8. So you have 8 nail techs. So it's a little less overwhelming. And it's it could be viewed as more like a family oriented thing, right? And so I did that. So where I'm at right now, I'm being split between the 2. So the 2 locations actually just launched. Monday? So last week on Tuesday was,
oh my gosh,
actually the first day that they opened. Thank you. And so we launched the 2 locations, and then the current location, that massive space, I'm going to convert that into a nail technology school.
So you're literally building a school?
I'm building a school. Yeah. And so doing that for the team, building the school, and then simultaneously, I'm actually building, I'm currently building a bigger board. I have a board for my nonprofit of 3 people. So I'm building that to be a bigger board to get some help in that regard, so that we can fundraise for there's two funds that we're fundraising for right now. First is the scholarship fund, to put these young women through beauty school. Now, for the beauty school, For me, I'm a nail tech, like everything is nails. So what we've done is we've partnered with other local schools in case somebody wants to do hair, or if they want to do skin, tattooing, barbering, anything like that. We partner with other schools here in town so that we would pay for their tuition for them to go to those schools as well. And so we have the scholarship fund that we're fundraising for right now. And then the other fund is the fund for the actual building of the nonprofit salon.
And what are you hoping to be open?
I'm hoping for the nonprofit salon to be open by the end of the year.
That's fantastic. How much does it cost to sponsor one girl to get through the whole program? What does it cost?
The whole program. So if they're going to a full cosmetology program, if they want to learn all of the above, in Albuquerque, that can cost up to $19,000. Yeah. Now, depending on their situation, if they still, have access to their parents, if they have their paperwork, meaning, their ID, social security card, birth certificate, and things like that. A lot of these young women that are being rescued from being trafficking, a lot of times they don't have that. And so if they do have access to that, they might qualify for financial aid. But even with financial aid, and grants, the most I've seen that they could get is up to $4 grand. So that still leaves them with a pretty hefty bill in order for them to go to school. And what's cool is that I actually am working on doing a pilot program with the local charter school, so that we can, start at a younger age. That way, like, all you have to do is just shift their minds just a tad. Like, hey, look over here. Let me show you how to play with nail art. Like it's really just showing them that they can do something else other than what they're growing up in, right? So there's so many different avenues that the nonprofit is like dabbling in. We have a relationship right now with our local New Mexico Dream Center. There's a Dream Center pretty much, I want to say, I would not be surprised if it's in all 50 states, but I know a lot of states have it. So this organization actively rescues young women that are being sex trafficked. And so for an organization like that, and I'm just going to backtrack a little bit, because when I met the executive director for that organization, she was telling me that that there was a gap that they have in the program, and that gap was when it came time to finding them a place to work. And so a lot of these young women were forced to work in fast food restaurants and things, and it's just too public for them to be in that type of environment. And so the man that was trafficking them, eventually somebody would end up telling him where she was, and they were losing girls back to that lifestyle. And so with this, putting them in a salon, of course, with Passion Story, like we would not be announcing like where the salon is. It could be a random salon name, like nobody's going to know that's Passion Story. So we could really hide them in plain sight. And making it a high-end salon, that in itself, kind of dictates the type of people that come in through the door. And so you're literally hiding them in plain sight. And so it gives them an out. But on the flip side of that, what we're also doing is we're wanting it to be a multiple market type of program, because if they're running for their lives, then chances are they can't stay in that current market. So we want to be able to have, the same concept in a different market so that they can go and start over somewhere else.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Some of these girls don't even have an ID.
No.
Is that because they were trafficked over the border?
It could be.
Our country.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if they're runaways, like you're 14, 15 years old, like you don't have an ID yet anyway. And you run away. And when you're 14, you're not thinking, oh my gosh, let me ask my mom for my birth certificate because I need identification. They don't do that. They just run, especially if they're in a home that, has abuse and whatnot.
Yeah.
So with New Mexico Dream Center, the first 3 months that when they first rescue them, that's what they do is they help them get access to all of their paperwork.
Did you say there are dream centers in other states? The
There
same?
are,
There are.
yeah.
I have to look it up, see if they have one in
Yeah.
Arizona. I love what you're doing. You're so inspiring.
Thank
And that's incredible. I know it's a huge, huge, huge problem in our country. It's everywhere, but the demand seems to be disgustingly huge.
Oh,
The
very
United
high.
States, and that makes me sick to my stomach. And it's so, sometimes I feel like I'm not sure if I can do, what can I do? What do I do? You know, how do I help? And you're just like, boom, I'm creating a nonprofit. I'm gonna show them a skill and I'm gonna build their confidence. And, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's absolutely incredible. I love it so much. Thank you so much for sharing and everything that you're doing. So if we wanted to help you in your nonprofit, how would we do that?
So if you go to our website, passionstory.org, the main way you can help right now is donating, because we need to make sure that we have the nonprofit salon open. And then the scholarship fund, they both go hand in hand, right? Because we can't put somebody through school if we don't have the nonprofit salon for them to work at after. Right. So, so any way you can help through donations, that would be incredible. That would allow us to open up the nonprofit salon. And, you know, for me, I have no intentions of just staying in Albuquerque. This is going to be a nationwide thing, and I will not hesitate to put it in all 50 states.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then where else can we find you? You're on Instagram.
I am on Instagram. My handle name is I am Priscilla Smith. And then I'm currently updating my website. So if you try to log on, you won't see anything yet, but I am PriscillaSmith.com is underway as well.
Yeah, it'll probably be ready by the time I release this
right. Okay, good.
That's fantastic. And make sure you get the book. The name of your first book is Passion
Yes.
Story.
The name of my first book is Unraveling Passion.
Unraveling Passion.
Yes, and that one you can, that one you can get on Amazon. You can anywhere online you can purchase that. And then our the other book that I co-authored, that's the Powerful Female Immigrants book, and that one you can also get online everywhere as well. And what's cool is that one is already a Amazon bestseller, so it's pretty cool to say, you know, I'm an Amazon bestselling author. I think that's pretty amazing.
Own it. You deserve it. Because you shared your story, and you're helping others, and I think you're helping others share their story and not be so ashamed about the trauma that they've experienced. And that's really the way that you heal.
And that's why I called the nonprofit Passion Story, because I believe everybody has a passion story.
Sure.
And so we had our event a couple months back, and I ended the event by saying that, you know, we're coming for your passion story. You know, I want all these women to be able to share their passion story.
Same. That's why I started this podcast. Seriously. I love that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Priscilla, so much for your time, your wisdom, your joy, your work, your heart, and making a difference in the world. Thank you, everybody who's listening or watching. I truly appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day. And remember that you can create the life that you really want. It's just one day at a time. God bless you.
Yeah, thank you.